All right, so good evening and welcome to Copperfield's Books virtual event with Bret Lyon and Sheila Rubin. My name's Jamie and I'll be your host for the evening. So just a couple of notes before we get started. The virtual format tonight is around 35 minutes of speaking and followed by a live Q&A. For any questions or comments that you have, please go ahead and submit them under the Q&A icon, which you can find at the bottom, so right in the middle of your screen. If you throw them in the chat box, that's cool too. I can see them. And you can do this at any time during the conversation tonight. And now I'm thrilled to introduce our special guests. Bret Lyon and Sheila Rubin have devoted decades of their lives to healing shame. They are the founders and co-directors of the Center for Healing Shame and of the Healing Shame Lyon Rubin Method. Through their popular workshops, they have taught thousands of psychotherapists, coaches, and other helping professionals across the world how to more effectively identify and work with shame. Bret holds doctorates in both psychology and drama and has taught at Tufts University, Pomona College, and the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And Sheila is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a registered drama therapist, and has taught at JFK University and CIIS, as well as being an eating disorder specialist. Now, they are with us tonight to celebrate their new book, Embracing Shame: How to Stop Resisting Shame and Turn It into a Powerful Ally. Now, thank you both so much for being with us tonight. I'm so thrilled to hand it straight over to you.
Great. Thank you so much.
We are so honored to be here.
We're really honored.
Yeah.
And let's hold up our books.
Yeah.
This is what we're here for. And it's a
Sounds-
gorgeous cover. We're very, very excited about how well Sounds True got what we were trying to do. And it's very magical.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk for a few minutes and read some from the book. We figured it's an author talk, so we thought we'd read from the book. And Sheila, you want to say anything?
Sure. Just it's a real honor to be here. I had a vision about writing a book, and I've been writing a book since I've been about 5 years old. So it's like now it's finally here. But it's an honor to have the book out at last, and it's an honor to be presenting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually a professional writer. I tried writing fiction, and people would tell me, I read your fiction and you should really try nonfiction. You do better with nonfiction. So that's what I do. And it's really nice. We're basically teachers. Most of what we do is teach workshops, mostly for professionals, professional helpers, therapists, coaches, and other professional helpers. And we're going to be expanding that to include more people who aren't in that role. But this book came out of that. So this is really a condensation of about 20 years of our work on shame as teachers. Our work on shame started way before that, personally. But that's where, that's what this is. We are so pleased that it came out. It came out well. It's very readable. It really conveys what we try to do as teachers, and really is very counter-shaming. It's very kind and gentle, and yet it really gets at what shame is and how to work with it. You want to add anything?
Yeah, just I had a vision about a book that would be counter-shaming so that people could read it. And usually if somebody says the word shame, they go into shame and start having an inner conversation about shame. So I thought I wanted to create a book that could be counter-shaming from the cover all the way through. So it would be an educational experience and a counter-shaming experience.
Very counter-shaming cover. See how counter-shaming.
And it would even have exercises in it. So all of that happened.
Yeah, we have exercises, we have stories, we have a lot of ways of trying to get across, trying to catch what we do in person and condense it into a book. It was really hard for me. For years, I didn't want to write a book because you can't take it back. It's just there. You can't interact and say, oh, you didn't get that. Let me try to phrase it differently. But I think we found a way to get between the stories and the exercises and the personal stories about us. I think we found a way to really kind of make it pretty safe for people
Yes.
and pretty informative.
Yeah, and we're co-directors for the Center for Healing Shame. So we have been teaching therapists, coaches, professionals how to work with this mysterious emotion of shame for quite a while. And this is our first book.
Mhm. And usually when we teach online, but we do see everybody, and we're not getting to see you, which is kind of disappointing for us. We love to see the people we're talking to. So please feel free to ask questions. We're going to leave plenty of time for questions, and you need to put those into the Q&A button that's down there. Or if somehow you missed that, the chat button, and we will get to those questions, and that'll kind of open things up. But we wanted to start by just kind of going over the book a little bit. We were going to first, did we want to first go over the table of contents, or just go right to it? Let's just look at the table of contents. So
Yeah.
we're looking at the book. It's right here, and
Called
it's fun.
Embracing Shame.
Boy, this
How
looks
to
like a
Stop
nice book.
Resisting Shame and Turn It into a Powerful Ally.
Mhm. And our table of contents, we wrote very deliberately. It took a long time to organize these chapters, so each one built on the one before it. So we have shame, the magic emotion, unlocking shame binds, reactions to shame, and the real innovative one, healthy shame, which is, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then once you've done all that, then we go on to shame in your inner child and healing your inner child. And then you can do the last three if you want.
And then shame and trauma, shame in the body, the pleasure and shame, and
Sex, pleasure, and shame. Don't leave out sex.
sex, pleasure, and shame. And then the last one is returning to relationship. And each chapter has exercises at the end of it so that you can not just read it, but you can have experiential as you're reading through the book.
Mm-hmm. And the exercises are mostly Sheila's, because she's the exercise queen. So we're going to read a little bit. This is from different places. We have a few sections picked out that we think are pretty well done and kind of give you a sense of what the book is and maybe can provoke some questions. So I'm going to start, and this is from the introduction. This book is the result of, I want to add, many, many, many years of our own work on ourselves, plus 20 years with our students and clients. And actually, it's more than that with clients, but 20 years actually teaching this work. Throughout it, we'll be sharing lots of personal stories, both our own and those of our students. We're all helping professionals and our clients. And all of the stories are true and told with permission. Some are composites, and some details have been changed to assure privacy. In our workshops and private sessions, we try to create a counter-shaming environment. And that means one in which we help lessen the shame people bring in with them. It's not enough to just not be shaming when you're trying to help people. You actually have to counter the shame that's already there. And we hope you experience the same counter-shaming support as you read this book.
Shame is an important and difficult emotion that is far too often just completely dismissed and misunderstood. Shame does not simply have to be tolerated. We don't have to remain afraid or ashamed of our shame. Rather than push shame away, strange as that may sound, we encourage our clients and students to find a way to try to embrace it, to acknowledge it, to explore it, to learn the lessons it is trying to teach. Once we embrace shame, it loses much of its power over us.
There's an old adage that says, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. This refers to the idea that we want to know what our enemies are up to so that we can be prepared for that and suffer as little harm as possible. Shame in its full power may be a very harmful enemy, but shame, when it is understood and softened, can become a friend.
We believe that there's an evolutionary purpose to shame, that all societies can benefit from a healthy relationship to shame, and that if we embrace shame, it can be tolerated, not just tolerated, but it can be transformed from a horrifying demon to a powerful ally. We believe, as radical as this may sound, that shame can be transformed from toxic and destructive to useful and healthy.
Just going to do that again. Shame can be transformed from toxic and destructive to useful and healthy. And I'm saying that, repeating what Sheila read, because it's so important. That is the whole thrust of the book.
That's what the book is about.
We look at what shame is, we look at how it manifests, and really go into a lot of detail, because a lot of parts of shame are not even noticeable or visible to people. And our big task is to de-shame shame, to make it part of our repertoire and useful. Okay, so we're going to read a little more. I think you start. No, I start this section. I got to be there. There's a quality of magic in how powerful and mysterious shame is. This is from chapter 1, Shame, the Magic Emotion. And then we say, we also call shame the magic emotion because Sheila was a magician and still is in her own way. And magicians work with misdirection. They distract your attention so you won't see them move the card from their sleeve to their hand, or take the coin from behind their back and put it in your ear. All the while, you're convinced you know what's going on, but you don't. You're on.
Shame distracts you by making everything confusing, blurry. Shame focuses you on yourself. It's an incredibly self-conscious emotion. You can start focusing more on yourself when you're in a state of shame, and less on other people and events around you. Getting lost in the internal conversations about what's wrong with you. And just like a magician's sleight of hand, how you lose touch with present reality.
Mm-hmm. And because shame is so subtle and so powerful, we approach it gently, step by step. Shame is a lot like nitroglycerin. A little bit goes a long way. If you don't treat it with respect and care, you might wind up with an explosion. But nitroglycerin in the proper dose can be beneficial to relax blood vessels and help the heart function properly. That's how shame functions too. Used in the right way, shame is valuable medicine. And that's, again, what we're trying to get at, that we're de-shaming shame. We're talking about it as valuable medicine. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the purpose of shame. And this is from the same chapter. And it's titled The Purpose of Shame, in nice big letters. We also really enjoy the way they laid this book out. It's very beautifully done. We're just like proud parents. We love this book.
It's our baby.
Every emotion we experience has developed and been refined over thousands and likely millions of years of evolution. In proper balance, any emotion is useful. The problem arises when one emotion becomes too powerful and disturbs the balance. We end up with too much of one emotion and not enough of others. Shame is often referred to as the master emotion because it modulates and interferes with other emotions so that we don't take action. You don't have the thing.
Yeah,
this is the purpose of shame. Hold on one second. Sorry about this. There it is. And you're chapter 2.
Yeah.
I'm in section 2. Yeah.
Our survival as a species relates to the fact that we are the most social of all animals. Humans have a longest childhood, and we're the most dependent on our parents and society to survive and thrive. As children, we are likely to make it without caretakers.
Unlikely to make it.
Unlikely to make it without caretakers. In a system of support around us. even as adults, we still need connection with others, not only for happiness, but for our long-term survival. As all of this is to say, shame is a social emotion.
Shame is designed to help us navigate society's rules and customs so we have a better chance of survival. In this way, shame is meant to keep us out of trouble with others. That's the bottom line. Shame is there to keep us out of trouble. And few of us would be comfortable in a shameless society. And we are kind of heading in that direction these days. So it's important to realize this, where everybody did whatever they wished, whatever they wanted to, without any regard for the feelings and needs of others. A little bit of shame then keeps us in line. Shame reminds us where the boundaries are, both social boundaries and natural boundaries. One of my kind of jokes that I say about shame is I can't fly, and I better know that, even though I would love to fly. I still can't do it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, society's rules aren't always logical, known for compassion, or understood. Additionally, shame thrives on difference. We're all unique in our own way, but if our differences aren't resolved in a healthy way with others, societal shaming occurs as a result.
And if you really get that shame is about difference and not dealing well with difference, you really get what's going on in the world today, basically everywhere. There's difference, and the difference is not being dealt with in a healthy way.
Mhm.
Okay, so on a more positive note, let's go to the last section, and this is the section on healthy shame.
So we wrote a chapter about healthy shame, and some people think that shame, should be hidden or tolerated at best and tried to be, pushed away if possible. We have this idea of healthy shame, that we can transform shame from the toxic shame into the healthy shame.
And you're on.
So the idea of healthy shame is the most transformative, mind-bending, life-changing concept we teach. It goes against all the conventional wisdom about shame. Most people think that shame is unilaterally dangerous and destructive, that we need to transcend it or eliminate it from our lives. The problem is, shame is essential. It's a primary emotion. Everyone has it in some form, and it's not going away. Shame is wired into our nervous system for a reason. We couldn't get rid of it if we tried any more than we could eliminate anger, fear, or grief.
A certain kind of shame is useful for anybody who wants to have productive relationships with other people. Shame helps us, and this is related to the purpose of shame, shame helps us recognize that we aren't alone in the world, that we need to obey certain rules and guidelines in order to be part of society, and that we need to acknowledge and be concerned about how other people feel. That is what we're referring to as healthy shame, which is quite different from toxic shame. Healthy shame leads to more rewarding relationships with ourselves and others. If enough people acquired it, healthy shame would lead to a happier, healthier society and a better world. This is the good news. The destructive, life-stopping force we know as shame can be transformed into something healthy and useful. Okay, and that was from the early part of the book. That's what we wanted to read. And I'm thinking maybe we just want to go over some of the qualities of healthy shame.
What about shame in the inner child?
Oh, we have, I thought,
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so shame in the inner child. Shame happens when your inner child is triggered. So our childhood stays with us. Things that happened to us when we were young, at 2 or 5 or 10, strongly influence us, our current life. that we may develop adult bodies and think our childhood is long behind us, somewhere inside the child is still quite alive, directly affecting our thoughts, words, and actions. This is the part of us commonly referred to as the inner child. And shame happens when your inner child is triggered.
Just as a baby or young child is full of life and energy, the inner child carries a great deal of our desires and impulses and life force. It also carries our wounds and disappointments. It may be that the most important relationship we ever have is the relationship we develop with our inner child. Many adults have moments of sudden sensitivity or confusion that make no sense to them and to the people around them either. And they often struggle to set boundaries in relationships because they don't realize how deeply what happened as a child still affects them. Some may deny the inner child part of themselves or even dismiss or criticize it. Unfortunately, and this is important, when we ignore, deny, or attack our inner child, the result is shame, momentary or constant. So we really, really need to build a healthy relationship with our inner child. And that's part of what the work is. And that's because when we do get shame attacks, when things go wrong, we have a theory about a 90-10 split, which is 10% is from the present and 90% is probably from the past, from our childhood, that's getting triggered off by the event in the present. So we're actually reacting to a break in attunement to something going wrong way back in the past that's then mirrored in the present.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, you want to add something to that, or
Yeah,
where do you want
just-
to go? We've got a few more minutes.
Yeah,
before we open.
I can't wait to take questions when they come. And I want to say that this idea of embracing shame is kind of radical, and yet because we've been working with shame so long and training our therapists and students and clients how to embrace their own shame, things can happen. Things can transform from toxic to healthy, and then the person can go from really, really stuck and low affect and deep sadness into transforming the shame into having their curiosity and having their creativity.
So basically, some of the principles we work with in terms of installing healthy shame, Sheila mentioned curiosity, and then self-compassion, being compassionate with yourself, and then a level of precision of really getting what's happening, because shame makes you stupid. You really lose IQ points. You get all focused on yourself, and you don't even really see the whole situation clearly. So part of what we are working for is a bigger picture, a more sense of all that's going on. And then the quality that Brene Brown talks about, which is vulnerability, which is the willingness to be vulnerable. But in order to be vulnerable with other people, we have to have discernment, and we have to decide who is it safe to be vulnerable with, and how much can we show each person, different amounts to different people. So the vulnerability is relative to who we're dealing with. And then when we've got a whole bunch of things we've worked through, then we can re-engage, not necessarily with the same people, but re-engage in society again. And that's the function of pulling away a little bit, withdrawing, reassessing what's going on, and then re-engaging, which is the qualities of healthy shame. So maybe we'll do the definitions. We have time.
Sure.
So the first, we're going to give you a couple of definitions of shame. The first one is from Brene Brown, who I imagine a lot of you have heard of. And that is that shame is the incredibly painful feeling or experience of believing we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. And that's a three-part definition. It's a feeling or experience. It's actually happening in the body. Shame is not just the inner critic. It is actually happening in the body. There's a physiological change in the body. And that change, which I'll talk about a little later, is a state of freeze, which I'll talk about. And at the same time, it's an unusual feeling because it's a feeling or experience of believing we are flawed, like there's something wrong with us. So it's a cognitive, it's an embodied cognition. It's happening in the mind and the body simultaneously.
Mm.
And then the third part, which is really what puts it into shame, is that because I'm flawed, I'm unworthy of love and belonging. So shame becomes what we call a perfect narrative, a perfect narrative of our life. Everything is because there's something wrong with me. Everything, and our job with ourselves and with our clients is to change that so that we have a sense of a more complex narrative of what life is about. And that's the Brene Brown definition, which is extremely useful. And you want to do the Kaufman?
My favorite definition is Gershon Kaufman. Shame is the breaking of the interpersonal bridge, the connection between person to person, parent to child, employee to employer. When there is a misunderstanding or a misattunement, maybe even somebody being on their cell phone, or not getting somebody's jokes, or not understanding something. There's a little misattunement, unintentional often, that one or both people can go into a state of shame. And being able to understand that shame is key, because throughout the book we talk about how to get that misattunement back and have the person back in tune. I think
And
maybe questions.
well, I wanted to do a little bit more, and then we'll go
Okay.
to questions. We got 3 questions, so that's good.
Oh, great.
We love to answer questions. That's
Yeah.
our specialty. So we love to interact.
Mm.
I wanted to say that the breaking of the interpersonal bridge, which is this definition, leads to the solution to shame.
Right.
First of all, when the interpersonal bridge is broken, the bridge between parent and child, the bridge between marital partners, like when Sheila looks at her cell phone and I'm talking and I go, "Hey, pay attention to me." And she's, "Well, I got this call. I got it." That kind of thing. Okay. So that bridge gets broken. But the wonderful news is one of the solutions to shame is the restoration of that interpersonal bridge. And when the interpersonal bridge gets broken enough times and there's no repair on that, then we get a breaking of the intrapersonal bridge and we attack ourselves. And that's when it really becomes shame. And so when we can begin to restore the interpersonal bridge, we can also begin to restore the intrapersonal bridge, the bridge within us. So we're not so divided into parts and we're not attacking ourselves. And that's the more complete explanation of that definition. And then I wanted to give a third definition, which is one that I came up with, but it's taken from other sources. I just made it simple. Shame is a combination of a primary emotion and a state of freeze. And I learned this when I started studying trauma. And I began to understand that shame is like trauma in that the nervous system begins to freeze up. And so you've got a primary emotion whose action tendency is to disappear, hide, and freeze. And it freezes the nervous system. We lose IQ points. We can't do things clearly. And we get very, very self-focused. So again, the restoration of that is to begin to gently, gently come out of that state of freeze. And I think this is a good time for questions.
Yeah, I'd love to hear any questions.
It's so fascinating. Thank you guys so much. So we
Oh,
have
yeah.
questions, and we have plenty of time for those of you who might still have some lingering thoughts. You can submit as anonymous, so get all your questions in. Okay. So the first is kind of a comment. It says, the shame-based identification is so sticky that it's very difficult to get it to disengage and help the client get to a healthy differentiation.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. One of the words that indicates shame is I feel stuck. It's, shame is a sticky, gooey kind of emotion. And one of the images people have a lot about shame is of this ooze that's kind of on them. So it really does stick to us, and it is a tricky business to begin to get it loosened up. And it does take time and work. And it's important not to be ashamed of the fact that you have to work on it and that it doesn't happen right away.
There's exercises in the book. Each chapter has different exercises to work with different levels of shame. So thank you for that description.
Yeah, that's a good description. We don't use it all the time, but it's very true. Shame is sticky. It's ooey and gooey. And yeah, it has all that quality to it. And it's meant to have that quality because it's designed to keep us low key, to avoid doing something that's going to get us into trouble. So to do that, it's got to be pretty powerful. And we believe it's, along with abandonment panic, it's basically the most powerful of emotions.
So kind of along those lines, how do you get the inner child to begin trusting the outer authority of the therapist? It's the first part. And then, and begin believing that the child, isn't actually bad, worthless, or awful?
Wow.
Yeah,
What a
all
good
these
question.
questions.
Yeah. Want to start that one, or should I?
Sure. This is, this is a multi-part question. And the first one is about how to help the inner child feel safe. And the shame story is that something happened to the person and they think it's their fault. And the inner child think it must be their fault, because if it wasn't their fault, then whatever was happening in their life, they would have
Have no control over.
Yeah, they would have no control over it. So what we do is we go back and we figure out what happened at that time, and we give either the therapist goes back and helps the person to hold their inner child, or protect the inner child, or actually take the shame off of the inner child symbolically so that they can have their dignity and that they can have their true self. Do you want to add more?
Oh, yeah, because that's a late stage, and that is where we ultimately want to get to. But it takes a very long time, and it's a very good question. How you get someone who's lost in shame to trust, that you're not going to shame them, basically. And I had a client that I worked with for a very long time. And anytime I gave her and I saw her again recently at the book signing, which we did in Oakland, which was wonderful to see her, and she's doing great. But we had a situation where whatever I would say to her, anything complimentary, her immediate reaction was, "You're trying to trick me." And I really had to let go. I had to stop pushing. I had to just get on the same wavelength with her. And basically I said, "Hey, let's just tell jokes. Let's just lighten up and have a good time." And we did that for quite a long time. And every once in a while I'd sneak in a little compliment. And every once in a while she'd say, "You're trying to trick me." And gradually I gained enough trust. I think one of the secrets is a certain amount of self-revelation. We call it leveling the playing field, so that they don't feel like you're somehow above them. They know that you're a human being, they're a human being, and you're a human being. You're not just the quote therapist. So that's one of the things I did, a little bit of self-revelation, a lot of listening, a lot of being with. And finally, one day I gave her a compliment and there was silence. And she just kind of took it in. And that was the big breakthrough moment, when she was able, then we could start doing some of the other work that needs to be done. But until they trust you, the interpersonal is the most important part of the work. And people with a lot of shame don't trust, because they feel, I'm so bad that you can't possibly like me and you can't possibly help me. So it's a really good question. And it's a time factor. And we actually do a workshop that's specifically designed to talk about that. The interpersonal workshop that we do, because it is such a loaded thing. And our theory is that we need to be a combination of trusted expert, which every therapist kind of feels they are, and certainly they don't feel they are, but the client wants that. But the other part is caring friend. And when they can accept you as a caring friend and a trusted expert, that's when there's enough trust there to start allowing for gradually beginning to go back to some of these episodes that caused the shame and help them see how the shame was put on them rather than intrinsic in them. And if they've done something wrong as a child, then the question becomes, well, where were your parents? Because we have clients who blame themselves for stuff that happened when they were 5 years old. And they were children, and they were supposed to be treated as children. So that's part of it. It's quite a process, but I think the question is good, and these are some of the directions we would take.
Yeah. I want to jump in.
Go ahead.
It's kind of an expert place that I love to work with people's inner children, and I do a lot of counter shaming, lowering the playing field,
Leveling playing.
Yeah, leveling and lowering the playing field.
Okay.
Because it's an inner child if we
Right.
get very playful.
Oh, so I see the two of you lower, right? Get down to it. I know you're great at that. You really are.
Anyway, a lot of it is getting to the playfulness and the creativity and the fun, and just kind of like getting to a playful place where we can play together and we can transform, and have them tell me little bits of what happened. And slowly but surely they begin to trust themselves. We build a safe little island, that the inner child can visit, and have their toys there or set the rules or whatever is needed, and eventually levels and levels and levels of healing can happen slowly over time, and sometimes all at once when we get to the shame of the inner child. I love these questions.
Oh, yeah.
More.
Yeah, we need to get them more, but let me just add here.
Yeah.
Mentioning shame is also very important.
Right.
Getting to use the word, the S word, so that it comes out in the open, because therapists tend to be as afraid of shame as clients are. So it's like recognizing that shame, it's there, and sometimes you need to use different words for it. You can say embarrassment, you can say something else, but eventually getting to the shame itself and having it be a real entity and not just this hidden secret.
And then witnessing the vitality of the inner child, witnessing the life force that has been, scrunched, down, and transforming that. So it's beautiful work.
Good. Let's go on. Make sure we get all the questions in. Go ahead.
That was a wonderful explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So who is this book for? Is it for anybody? Is it for someone who, has already worked on shame, or kind of what's the audience? Can anybody?
I love your questions. The book is for everyone. We wrote it for everyone. It's for parents, and it's for teachers, and it's for therapists, and it's for everyone. Because it is counter shaming from page 1 all the way through it. If therapists get this book, or students becoming therapists get this book, I think it'll be really helpful. One of our readers said that this book should be required reading for anybody, so that they can understand this basic emotion of shame, which is completely not understood.
Yeah, I think we worked very hard to try to do the impossible, and we think we succeeded. And that it really is a book for everybody. I think part of it was our collaboration and being aware that we wanted to reach people at every level. So it's very helpful for therapists. It's absolutely, I think, essential for therapists, because they really need this book. But it's also accessible to pretty much everybody. Certainly anybody who's begun to work with this shame, you need it. But even people who maybe not even realize they have shame, we're presenting, at least trying to, and I think we're succeeding, presenting in such a way with the case studies and the exercises and the languaging, so that it's very clear and simple. We condensed it way down. We actually had a much longer book, and we hired an editor who took 1/3 of the book out of the book to make it tighter and clearer. And we're very happy with it. But first we were horrified that all this book was gone. And we said, no, it's actually better now, because it's simpler and it's clearer.
Yeah, I mean, that it's just so great because another one of our comments says, I hope you can train teachers as well as therapists.
Oh my
Yeah.
God,
This
yes.
should be required reading for teacher education.
I would love for teachers to read the book.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's really the missing piece, because the most important people to reach are children and teachers of children. And so we do have some reach in that direction. And one of our people is an educator and reaching out specifically to educators, but we haven't reached that community like we have therapists or coaches,
Yeah.
and we'd really like to. So anybody has any contacts or connections for us,
Love
we would
to.
love that, because we really feel the same way as this person
I
writing in.
used to present at schools, long before I wrote the book. I used to be presenting at schools, so I would love to present the book at
Yeah,
schools.
well, we're both teachers. I mean, we've
Yeah.
both been teachers. I wrote a song once that said, I've been a teacher all my life, but I've still got a lot to learn. And it is true. I've been a teacher all my life. That's what I've always done. That's what I consider that I do now. I still consider myself basically a teacher, even with clients. I'm a teacher. And teaching is just the most important thing in the world.
Yeah.
So I really, really would like teachers to read this and do whatever we can to get it to teachers. And the book will be a big improvement on the workshops in terms of accessibility. It's right there. It's $20. It's easy. So we're very excited about that.
Right. And I did share the link in the chat box for more information about their classes.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, we have like 15 different workshops. We have a full training program for therapists and coaches. And then we have about 15 different workshops that are basically 2 Saturdays mostly, and that are available. We take some of those workshops are open to the general public as well.
And then we also have people can take the workshop. We have they're able to take a film if they want to study it. They can buy it as a film, so they don't actually have to be live. They can do a recording and watch that.
Yeah, the magic of Zoom. We went on, I was telling you before, we went online about a year before the lockdown, and we have students from all over the world at this point, which is very exciting. New Zealand. The only tricky part is they get very tired by the end, because it's 6:00 p.m. for us, and it's 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. for them. But we have from Germany, we have from Sweden, Ireland right now, New Zealand. It's just really.
I had a vision a long time ago of having a Center for Healing Shame where we could teach all around the world through Zoom. So that is happening.
Yeah, it was your vision. Your vision. I fought it every step of the way. Well, Zoom in the old days was more like this, where you couldn't see the people. But now they've got Zoom, so you can see everybody and you can interact, and you can even do demo sessions. And the whole thing is just magic, really magic. And I love it. I think it's just an incredible tool. I miss the lunches together. That's what I most miss, hanging out. But in terms of the actual teaching and the work, it's just incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, so please, if this seems interesting to you and you're in the helping professions, please, take a look at our website. And even if you're not, we got a lot of free material on there, a lot of webinars free and articles. And we just started writing for Psychology Today. We just started blogging for them. That's coming from the book. And so I put my first blog up yesterday. It's up for one day. It's on Psychology Today. If you put in my name, you will find it. So, or Sheila's name for that matter. It's our blog. The first article is mine, but it's our blog. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Other questions?
We got one more.
We've got one more. So Tori says, as proud parents of your new book, I want to hear stories about how it got conceived, grew, and developed.
Wonderful. I've been waiting for that question. Yeah. Well, we talked about writing a book for years and years. And, we have students who, were with us like 15, 16 years ago. And, they would say, well, where's the book? Where's the book? And, and we said, we finally put it out. I said, finally, you finally, it's pretty funny.
I took a year working with a coach who helped me take all of the material that we had in our healing shame workshops and write a proposal. And it took a long time to, work on all of that. And eventually I worked on that with her. Then I showed it to Bret, and then we turned it into Sounds True as a proposal, and they really liked it. So they said, yes, you can write the book. So then we started writing the book. And that, you want to talk about more about that part?
Well, I want to talk about the fact that I wrote a book before, which was kind of it didn't go well. I mean, and they printed a lot of copies. It was a new publisher. I think they were really kind of a scam, like the producers. I'm not sure, but they disappeared. All the money disappeared. And they printed 50,000 copies of my book, which all got remaindered to Australia.
Oh.
So I have this vision of me going to Australia and having parades. And, there's a wonderful movie called Searching for Sugarman, where the guy is a musician. And it turns out he is famous in South Africa and he doesn't know it.
Yeah.
So that's my vision of me in Australia. But it was very, very shaming and depressing. And I gave up on books. I never wanted to write another book. And I said I never would. And then Sheila went ahead and, got this proposal written. So I said, oh, all right. And this has been a very, very different experience. We've been so supported. Sounds True is just a wonderful, wonderful
They're
place.
amazing.
Terrific
They're
publisher.
really
They've
amazing.
given us,
They promoted it.
Right.
They are every change that we needed, every literary change,
Yeah, well,
style change, or everything. They helped us so that the book reads beautifully.
Yeah, well, when this came out, this was the first attempt at a cover. We were given discretion or decision over almost everything in the book, including the way it's designed interiorly, which I made some changes in. But this cover came to us, it was one of three. It was the first one of three, and we grabbed it.
It was so amazing.
She really got it, and we wrote the designer, and because we were just so blown away by it. And she said it was her favorite design, and she also wanted our letter to go to him. Was it okay to give her our letter of praise to her mother to see, which I thought was adorable. But it's such a brilliant design, and it really catches the sun coming up and the gold. And here you have the cauldron of shame down here, and then coming out of the shame into the sun, and the sun on the water. It's just, I couldn't have possibly, I wanted, these days, a lot of books are being done without any illustration, just with a lot of type. And I hated that. And I wanted an illustration of some kind, but I never imagined something this beautiful. It was just incredible. Once we saw this, we knew it was going to be a big, big success.
Yeah.
Right.
Looking at it, you can have a visual positive experience of the sun and the darkness and the words, and then have just this sense of, wow, embracing shame. So it's all right there. And then the book, the inside is, I've been told it's a gem of a book, and I've been told
got 2 reviews.
Everyone should read it.
Right.
We've
got the reviews right on it. We contacted people. They do the pre-publication reviews, and I read the reviews. We've got 18 in here, and I read these reviews. I said, either a lot of people are lying, or we wrote one heck of a good book. Because these things are really, really crazy.
It's the missing piece.
Swelled head.
Shame is the missing piece. It's invisible, and every time somebody, whatever it is, walks into a room, has a question, and there's any kind of difference at all, there can be shame. And so to be able to name the shame, counter shame it, and have all these different exercises and all these different chapters that take it from basically what shame is, what are the, hidden shame, spirals, what are the hidden shame conversations, what are the 4 reactions to shame, how does shame show up in relationship, all of that. And then, what could be, if your inner child gets triggered, coping with that, and then figuring out healthy shame. And then eventually we return to relationship. And there's a chapter on trauma. It is really, really, really.
It's a really full book.
Yeah.
Really full. And cut way down. I did want to say one more thing, which is that I used to be a professional writer, and I'd given it up. So this is all very interesting. And so the way the tasks kind of divided up as it became clear, is Sheila did all the exercises, and a lot of the case studies are hers. And then the technical writing part, which is both our material, but I did most of that writing. And so I was sitting in my room 6 to 8 hours a day, every day. And it only took me, the actual book writing was only about 2 months. Because
Wow.
we had so much material ready. And the last book I wrote took me 5 years to write.
Right.
So it was really, I just got into this kind of ecstasy, this incredible flow. When you reach a certain point in writing, it's a horrible, horrible, lonely experience until something happens, and it's like the vision becomes clear. It's all there. And now you just got to refine it and put it down. And that's what it reached. And so I was just in this kind of altered state for about a month. It was crazy. And I still haven't fully come out of it. It's like, just gotta do something else. Gotta do something else. No, relax. No. Got more to do. So yeah, it was interesting.
That's fast.
So
We got a couple last questions. I'm hoping
let's get them in.
on. You were just talking about counter shaming, Sheila, and what you would do. Can you give an example of how you use counter shaming with yourselves on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love that question. So one thing that I love to do is I'll rub my hands, and then I'll put my hand on my heart, and I'll just breathe in. I'll say you're good enough, and then I'll breathe out any shame that's there, and I'll breathe in. Good enough. Breathe out any shame that's there. And then the countering the shame is to figuring we're all doing the best we can in this moment, and to just be kind to ourselves.
Well, the phrasing that we've developed, the basic framing is, I'm a limited human being, just like all limited human beings. I have strengths and I have weaknesses, just like all people. I don't have the same strengths and weaknesses, but I have strengths and I have weaknesses, and I make mistakes on a regular basis. And the thing I've been working with lately, I've actually turned 80 in August. And so when I can't make a hill, or I have to go a little slower than I really want to, it's like, hey, I'm 80 years old, what the hell? So that's my counter shaming right now. I'm using that as a whole counter shaming tool. It's like 79, I couldn't use it, but 80, it's like, hey. So,
thank you for that. And last question here. Based on your clinical experience, what can Bret and Sheila say, if anything, about any spiritual insights the clients have gained as a result of working through their toxic shame?
Oh, I love that question. That question is just touching really deep. So the spiritual shame is the darkest emotion. It is the most constricted, darkest emotion spiritually. And so when somebody starts to counter the shame, transform the shame, what happens is sometimes people have spiritual awareness, their heart opens, their fifth chakra opens, their creativity opens, and they start wanting to write again, or they start wanting to sing again, or their reconnection with their spirituality can come in little by little by little, and sometimes in big ways. And because shame is so heavy, heavy, by lifting the shame in the ways that we write about in the book, it can be a really spiritual experience. So that was what I would say. That and so much more.
There's a lot to say. We talk a lot about the imaginal realm, and we work in the imagination a lot, which is an area where a lot of therapists don't do as much work, and it's very important. We're very cognitive, and it's not enough. So we have 4 different realms that we work in, and in the imaginal realm, it's actually the imaginal spiritual realm. Well, we don't put that in because it's a tricky piece to it, but there is a spirituality that's involved in working with shame, because I think Sheila hit it. It's the darkest emotion, and it's about kind of what life is about, and there's a Mel Brooks line, a movie, I think he made a movie. It's called Life Stinks, and that's kind of what shame does. And so the spiritual awakening is no, it's really not like that. It may seem like that right now, but that's not what's going on. There's something much bigger and much more inspiring that's happening. And when you go to the darkest place, you can come out into the light. So I think there is a really strong connection. Peter Levine says that people who've had terrible trauma can sometimes from that experience have a really, really deep spirituality grow. And I think it's the same thing with shame.
And then in drama therapy, there's this idea of the act hunger, that there's something in us, that some act that we're not able to do because of whatever reasons. And I would say kind of because of shame. And so when we get around the shame, often there's an act hunger that will come through the person, and they will have more connection with their spirituality, more connection with their life force, more connection with their purpose in life, and come back alive again. So it's a very cool experience.
I bet your classes are so great, because listening to you guys right now, I can't believe it's already been an hour. It feels like
it goes quick.
2 minutes. Last thing, are you guys working on anything now?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, exciting.
We're working on it now.
I'm in the process of doing a guidebook to go with this book.
A workbook to go.
A workbook
Wow.
where people can actually go through and do
Smart.
a workbook and write things down and process through the book.
Mhm.
And then all of our psychology blog.
Yeah, well, the Psychology Today is an opportunity. I used to, as I said, I used to be a writer, and it's kind of bringing back this kind of, oh my God, I got to write more, but also the excitement around it, reaching.
And then our
people in a different way.
classes, we have
And
many classes.
we got to
that people
stop
can
ourselves
take
because we keep
on
adding
Zoom.
workshops.
So I hope people will check out our website,
The latest
check
one,
out our classes.
the latest one was, I think, shame and addiction, and then we did
Wow.
shame. We do different
Next is
topics. The
shame
next
and
workshop we're
aging.
doing is shame and aging.
That's
That'll
coming
come
up
in December.
very soon.
And that I started that workshop when I turned 70. And I've been, working on the material. Actually, we did it for the first time. I was, I think, 76 or so. And now that I've turned 80, it's a whole, new thing. So it's a really important workshop for me. And so we see shame as kind of everywhere and has to be untangled. So we have all these topic workshops that we keep developing. And I think we're going to try to stop at 15, at least for a while. But we have shame in parenting. We haven't even taught that yet. So that will be coming up. So I think there's just a huge amount. The world has opened to us and with this book coming out. And so, yeah, we've got a lot going on, really a lot. I've already, Sheila has a potential kind of autobiography that I'd love her to write about her childhood and what happened with that. And then we've got other things we're thinking about writing and
a children's book that I want to write.
Book, we definitely want to have that
and
children's
then
book
several
out.
performances that I want to do that are like story based performances based on coming out of the shame and transforming. So
so it's really an exciting time.
Questions.
I mean, I'd love to be 55 instead of 80 at this point, but you get there when you get there, and this is where we are, and it's an exciting time. We're planning to do. Sheila's a lot more active than I am, but we're planning to do a lot more. So,
it's just such a compelling, topic, and I have so much respect and admiration and appreciation for what you guys have put together and been able to offer to the public. I do want to remind everyone that yes, this is being recorded. Tomorrow, you'll all get an email. It'll have a link to the recording. I will include a link to the book. I'll include a link to their website. I might try and find that Psychology Today article, and I'll include a link there.
Great. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, so if you're like me tonight and just kind of enjoyed yourself and watched, no problem. I've got you covered tomorrow.
Great. And please, if you're on this recording, buy the book at Copperfield's. Get it from Copperfield's.
Please.
Absolutely. A great bookstore. They have 9 branches, all in Marin and Sonoma. And I love going into Copperfield's. So
I look forward to getting something on the schedule with you guys in person, because it would be awesome to meet you in person. And
That
I
would
think
be great.
Right.
Yeah.
our community would really appreciate it. So
Oh,
thank you both for
Yeah.
being,
you're
Real
welcome.
pleasure.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will also let you guys know about the recording tomorrow. I'll send you a
Great.
link.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's been a real pleasure.